is moving, it's a state. It's something that always happens. I can do moving. I should have created my print function to handle this thing, because here it will just overwrite. Anyway, here moving, playing, everything that doesn't have an arrow, a green arrow before, is something you can call a state or a continuous event. What do you have? Is flipped. Compare opacity is a state. If the opacity is 100, it's kind of a state. Everything that doesn't have an arrow is a state. The peak is it's less obvious to see this as a state. It's kind of specific to picking, so you have tons of little pick something, but here is a state. It's kind of an action inside the condition, I'd say. That's maybe something I should have talked in the picking video, but yeah, you have all these little picking conditions that are slightly more than an action in the condition than real condition. But it works. If you can't pick something, it will return false, and the condition, it will be considered as a condition. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix of two. So yeah, everything here is on floor is really can be considered as a state, as something that is continuous on all. On more than one tick. However, these ones with an arrow capture a change. Collision is a change between not overlapping and overlapping. Fall is a change. Move is a change. You change from not jumping to jumping. This means it's the first time your vertical velocity will go to negative. Here it's the first time you change from not on floor to on floor. Here it's the time you change from moving to not moving. On move is the opposite, between not moving to moving, and fall between a vertical velocity to negative or zero. Which means you are jumping or you are just on the floor, and it will capture the difference between that and your vertical velocity is greater than zero, meaning you are going down. So yeah, here you have animation. You have animations trigger. You can trigger something when the animation goes from playing to not playing. Here, when any animation goes from playing to not playing. Here, when a frame is at a specific number, I change to another number. It's really I'm not sure if it captures the change when you're doing the action set frame. But anyway, you have all these events. But as you can see, you don't have every kind of trigger you can think of, and for all the missing trigger you have the trigger once. And on top of that, for this specific, really specific kind of problem, I don't think you can't really do anything else than using a variable. A thing you can do to avoid having too much global variables, and having too much global variables can be a problem when you want to use them, because your set value will be cluttered with tons of global variables you don't need. One thing you can do is to put the global variable in local, so it won't appear here if I'm doing something here. If I do set value, I have no global variables here. because I can only access the local variable in its scope. Here I can access it. And since a local variable is reset each tick, you can really use is as a click blocker and 0, 0 and switch it back to 1 here. And automatically when the event will go back to this group, the click blocker will go back to 0, because here when you reach this point the variable is kind of destroyed, so here it's recreated with the value 0. So you can do this and then this, change to camera. Let me just so it's more cool to look at. So here you click on the change to camera 2 and then change to camera 3. Okay, so because you can see maybe that it's not a matter of really state versus change. This variable don't really capture this variable just within a change, which means within an event in the sense of something that happens. Within something that happens, you want to control using something that happens using the same event. You want to control where you want the event to propagate in some way. So it's not really the topic of today's of this video, but that's something I think it's important to know and resemble this idea of stopping an event when you don't want it to trigger or to happen. So I wasn't planning to talk about this, but it came into my mind while showing you this. And what happens behind the scene is probably that an event keeps track of if the event was triggered or not. So it's the same kind of mechanism I used here, but it's it doesn't show up. It's easier to work with the trigger ones. So yeah, so to re-summarize, state, change, and then if you want to use an information you can't use a trigger for, when the is dead Boolean change, you have the trigger ones to help you. One slightly little thing to add to this is dead plus a trigger once is not exactly a trigger. It resembles a trigger, it works a bit like a trigger, but the differences are that this, and I told you this some lesson some week ago, this is out of the event flow. You can maybe see all triggers as if they were on top or on bottom. I prefer seeing them on top. I think it's the case. They are evaluated, then the event sheet is evaluated, then I think you have the rendering happening afterward. So triggers are, even if you put triggers inside your event sheet, in the middle of events, they will behave as if they were on top of everything. And within same kind of event, as you see, they will happen in the order they were called. If I do this, for instance, the order they are in the event sheet. The blue, so I will reach camera 3 before camera 2. Or not. Oh, I don't have activate and deactivate. If I click here, oh yeah, no, it won't happen because I get them out of the way. Let me toggle. If I click here, I should go to camera 3. Yeah, because of the click blocker. If I didn't have the click blocker here, I will go directly to camera 2, so it's really in the order of the event within the same kind of trigger event. For instance, every click event will be in the same order. If I have a simple let me see, click. If I click on nothing, on click, let me see, I will go back to the proper order, and this. Okay. If I click, let me see what. If I click, it will show click. I click. If I click here now, it will never work because this will catch the click and will set the click blocker to 1. So this will never trigger, which show you that every click event, every click trigger are evaluated in order. But within continuous events, they are evaluated as if they were on top of everything. Now, one thing that can be a bit one question you can ask yourself is, and what happens between triggers themselves? How are they ordered? You should consider that you shouldn't know this information. I can move them because they are here. They're using a variables. Okay, so you have to consider things as if they were on top, but still accessing variable in their scope. So it's a bit of a mix. So yeah, in the question, which one of these happened first? If I collide and click at the exact same time, you shouldn't consider that there is an order. You shouldn't consider this. So last thing I wanted to say about triggers is that you can't invert them, and that makes sense. If you think about an instantaneous event, what is the opposite of an instantaneous event? It's always. It wouldn't make much sense to invert the on-collision. What is the invert of on this moment where I collided with something? It's every other time. So the same way as invert the on left click button, it's every moment where I didn't press the button. It's every tick but the one where you will trigger this event. So it's kind of a division by zeros thing. It's really metaphysically weird. So yeah, you can't invert trigger. One last thing also about trigger, you may remember this coin thing. I think it was on week 2. The collision trigger is, for now, within the event flow. It's the only trigger that is kind of a fake trigger. It will behave almost as if you have is overlapping and trigger once, but it's not exactly the same because you will trigger the event for each collision. So you have something like a weird thing happening. So yeah, the on collision is for now within the event flow. So if you set